Hello. In this video, I would like to talk to you about the best way to go from having a complete theoretical overview of a language to developing real, actual, practical, functional skills in speaking and reading and writing and understanding this language. Getting a complete overview of a language is something that you can do as a self-learner, an autodidactic learner, by using the kind of manuals and materials that I've talked about throughout my entire career, Assimil and Linguaphone type materials, other teach yourself and colloquial type books. If you've gone through a number of these on your own, or if you've studied sort of a beginning and intermediate level language in some sort of school environment, at a certain point, you'll come to a stage when you realize, I've covered most of the grammar. There's stuff I don't understand, but there's not much that I'm seeing that's new to me. And I've got some basic vocabulary. And if I listen to or shadow some of these lessons, I seem to understand a lot. I think I could probably communicate in a language if I had the choice, but it's a foreign language. That's the definition of a foreign language, is I'm learning it out of the context where it's actively used. I don't have any opportunity to activate it. And so I think we can look at learning a foreign language to getting to this complete overview, or this high beginner, advanced beginner, or low intermediate stage, is sort of akin to building a model engine or motor, and you want to now get it revving. You want to jumpstart it. It's not the nicest analogy, but you might be like who's the rabbi who built the golem, or Dr. Frankenstein. You're constructing a living thing, and now you want to bring it to life. How can you get life into this conglomeration of ideas and words and concepts and constructions that you've put into your head? I think without any question at all, the absolute best thing to do at this stage is to go for an intensive immersion stay in a country where this language is spoken. You want to go for at least about 2 weeks. If you can stay for longer, that's even better, obviously, 3 weeks or a month. And you want to have one-on-one lessons there with a trained professional language tutor. So to be totally immersed in the language and get one-on-one attention and shoring up all your weak spots and correcting gaps and things like this. So going for an immersion stay in a foreign country is something that, unfortunately, a lot of people don't do it right. They go to do this and they come back and they haven't done it. Maybe they had a good vacation at the time, but then with hindsight, they kind of think, I went there to work on my language and I didn't do that. And then they develop a complex about that. And this is not a good thing. If you want to, maybe you're fortunate enough that you have no financial or family or other logistic constraints, and you can go for multiple visits all the time. But for most people, if this is something that you are going to say, well, I can't do this on a regular basis, this is hard for me to arrange, and it's pretty expensive. It's probably going to cost a couple of $1,000s, and I want to make sure that I actually get the most. I'm going to have a language learning intensive experience. I want to jumpstart my language, take it really up a notch, not just go for a vacation. How can I do that? So that's the purpose of this video, to talk about that. Obviously, you need to plan for it. You need to plan very well for it if you want it to work out well. So the first thing you would need to plan for is you need to choose a good program. You just need to do your due diligence, find out about all the different types of programs that are available in the country, the place that you're wanting to learn. All things considered, no language school, they all have their marketing. They're not going to, everybody's going to talk about how good they are. But if you can get a larger school that is probably somehow affiliated with or directly part of a university, that's probably your best bet for several reasons. You are going to want to have somebody who's very well trained in phonetics, so somebody who's getting more of an academic background in training and teaching his or her language as a foreign language. And you're also wanting to have a choice of teachers, a number of teachers. Some questions to ask of any institute you're thinking of looking at is, well, how many teachers are there? You're going to give me multiple teachers? Obviously make sure you're getting one-on-one lessons. There's no point in going for classes or any kind of small group lessons. Am I going to have one teacher the whole time? Am I going to have 3, 4, 5? How many hours of lessons should I take? Can I take? Can I have the one teacher the whole time? Are we going to have different teachers? Are there enough teachers that I will be able to say, if you give me a main teacher, there might be nothing wrong with him or her, but, if I'm going to be sitting intensively working one-on-one with this person, we just need to really hit it off. And if I just feel like I'm not hitting it off with one person, is there another person that I can try? So you want to have a large supply of well-trained teachers. You also want to think about where you're going to be living and staying. Most of these places have, as part of the package, play up the homestay aspect. So you can live with a family, which will provide you with cultural insight and opportunities to have sort of free, unstructured conversations on evenings and weekends, and maybe strike up some friendship or do something with them. So there too, you might want to ask, how well screened are these families? How can I choose among them? What is their, what will I know about them? And also, is it possible to change families if somehow I don't feel comfortable? What are my other options? Can I stay in a hotel or my own apartment, Airbnb? If it's part of a university, is there like a dormitory option? Can I be in a place with other students? Things like this are things to check out. All of these places will have these. One really critical factor and a good way of choosing is to say, well, what about cultural opportunities? How much is built in for me to have a tour guide, to be taken around and shown things in the city, or to go out of the city and do other things? The tour guide component is really actually critical. I'll talk more about this later. If they offer one to begin with, you're going to want to probably increase this. You might be able to ask about this early on, but that's a good gauge too. Do they have sort of some cultural activities and guidance also built into the program? If you have found a program that will offer you all of this, and now you know you're going to go, you really want to be thinking, particularly if you're an autodidact, you've taken charge of the whole language learning process until now. You don't want to surrender this. So you want to go and you want to meet your tutor, and you want to be prepared so that you can basically say, yeah, I respect you and your training, and I want you to teach me what you can, but I also want to kind of be in charge of the learning process. I know what I need, or I think I know some things that I need, so please can we pay attention to them, and then you can supplement with what you see that I also need. But don't go just as a blank slate. You should prepare ahead of time. Obviously, if you've taught yourself a language, first and foremost, this is your opportunity now to really work on your pronunciation. You've probably learned by shadowing, listening to tapes and stuff. You've done the best you can, but there are sounds you can't hear. You know that there are things that you're probably wrong in the music, the intonation, everything about the language. And just make notes of all the things that you find confusing. Is this a language that has maybe something like a subjunctive that you don't really get, or multiple past tenses and you don't really understand the difference? Are there perfective and imperfective classes of verbs? All the things that are really difficult for you, go with the list so you can say, hey, this is something I want to work on. Because your teacher, particularly, let's call her she, most teachers are in programs like this, so she's going to be well trained, she's going to have a curriculum she's going to want to probably give to you, and it's probably pretty good, but if it's, if you can tailor it to yourself, you'll get more out of the whole program. I think that the best way to structure a day, if you're going to go, like I said, 2 weeks is probably a minimum to really get something out of a program like this. And you would want to say, okay, I've got 10 days of classes, one-on-one classes. So how can I get the most out of that? So I think the ideal thing to do would probably be to have classes in the morning. So have 3 or 4 hours of classes from 8 to noon, have one-on-one interaction in a classroom environment with a trained tutor. And in those 4 hours, let's say, you want to make sure that you cover the following things. Like I said, first and foremost, phonetics. You should be trained in phonetics. You should have a background too, so that you can specifically go through all the sounds that are difficult, hard to make, do drills, and try to get the sounds and the rhythm and the intonation of the language systematically, working on all your weak spots. Then, second thing that you want to be doing, and I would really advise you to start doing this on the airplane as you're flying to the country, is to write an essay. Every day, not an essay, a journal entry. Talk about what you're doing. Do the best you can to summarize what you're thinking and seeing and doing. And on your first meeting with your teacher, give her this writing and say, hey, every day that I'm here, I want to write about my experience and I want to give it to you and I want you to correct it and explain to me what's wrong, and then I'm going to correct it again and then write another thing for the next day. So spend some time writing what you see, having it corrected, explain what's wrong and seeing the errors, and then implementing those changes right away. That's the second thing you want to do. Then you also want to you'll be working on, with the phonetics, the individual sounds. You'll be doing some talking as you do the essay correction, but also just say, hey, give me some text, something to read aloud that you think is challenging at my level. Let's find my right reading level. Let's find a level of text that is really just challenging enough for me. And then let me read it aloud, and then I'll try to summarize and tell you what I understood, and then we'll talk about that, and you can correct some things there. And then both with what I saw already, I came to knowing I found the subjunctive difficult, or these, what did I say, the perfective and imperfective verbs, or the past tenses. So let's do really some deliberate practice, some drills on the things that I pointed out that I know that I found difficult. And now, as I'm talking to you, as you're seeing my writing, what do you notice that are my biggest weak points, my biggest gaps in my command, my knowledge of the language? So let's work on that. Let's do some structured things on that. And then if that doesn't take up the entire 4 hours, whatever, she has on her plate, whatever else she can offer as part of something to do. Then in the afternoon, that's where I said the afternoon, it's just as much as you want to be inside, face-to-face, one-on-one, really doing linguistic corrective work in the mornings, part of the immersive stay. In the afternoon, you want to be out and about with a tour guide, somebody that can show you the city, take you to museums, show you around, and also be having conversations with you the entire time. So as I said, hopefully they will provide somebody they probably don't imagine you doing this every afternoon, but that's what you want to do. So you can offer this person, pay them extra, find somebody with an agent, but try to have this set up, because in my personal experience doing immersion stays, this is as important, if not more so, than the actual one-on-one with the teacher. Seeing the country, seeing the culture, and discussing its history, discussing what you're seeing with somebody who's a knowledgeable tour guide. So you'll be conversing all afternoon, not correcting the language, but just conversing all afternoon in the language. And then you have 4 hours of one-on-one corrective linguistic work, then 4 hours of cultural immersion and conversation. And then you also have your meal times and general transportation. That'll take up most of your day, but you want to do a couple of hours of homework every evening. And the homework should consist of reviewing everything you did that morning. So all the drills you did for phonetics, all the drills you did for grammar, all whatever you read aloud, all that kind of review. But again, the main thing that you should take as the thing that you're taking to drive your corrective learning process is that journal entry, that description of your day, that thing that you wrote that she corrected. Take it out and rewrite it, incorporating all her corrections, so you have a piece of paper that you wrote in your handwriting that is correct in that language, and then go straight from correcting the previous day's writing to writing down in as much detail as you can everything that you did and saw and thought and learned that day. And then give that to her the next morning and do the same thing. So that is how an ideal Monday through Friday would be structured. On weekends, you probably would want to say, obviously going to be somewhat different. On a Saturday, a nice thing to do might be to ask your teacher, the main tutor, the indoor classroom person, to get to know her on a different level, a different basis, and invite her to invite you to meet her family, or to see something, or to meet some interesting people that she knows, and it's your treat. You're going to take them out. You're going to do something nice for them. So you'll get to meet other people and see her outside of the classroom context and get to have, a different kind of interaction there. And on Sunday afternoon, at least, a good thing to do would be with that tour guide to leave in the morning, take more time to, probably you're going to be in a big city where most of the things you're doing are in and about the city. But on Sunday, you can go in the outskirts. There's probably something historical or cultural or natural to go see or do to sort of have a bigger experience with that. Those are the good things that you should be doing. Now, not to be negative, but there's some things that there's basically one thing that you need to avoid that, shockingly enough, so many people don't avoid, and it just torpedoes the entire experience. And that is, if you're an American like me, you need to avoid the English language 100%. The whole purpose of going for an immersion experience is to totally immerse yourself. If you're going to learn Russian, it's got to be all Russian. If you're going to learn Spanish, it's got to be all Spanish. Whatever it is, you should be 100% focused in the language. That's why it's important to go at this stage. If you go when you're still beginning, you can't totally immerse yourself. But once you get to this point, it might be challenging, it might be tiring, but you can do it. But you won't be doing it if you are, interacting and meeting other Americans or other native English speakers, or just people who are going to try to speak English to you, which is why I mentioned, they might have an option of staying in a dormitory. That might not be the best, because there you could meet other people who are from your background, or you're tired and they want to talk and you want to be friendly. You fall into talking with them. So that's one thing you need to watch out for. Another thing you need to watch out for, so many people these days are I'm not going to say this whole 2 weeks has to be digital detox, but it should be time out of time. It should be time away, time apart. You can't be on social media posting, or texting and posting things about what you're doing and talking to people in English, and back and forth. You need to stay in Russian or Spanish or whatever it is. So, you probably are going to, want to, if you're in the habit of doing that all day long on your phone, either just leave your phone behind or get a different phone or do something. But you don't want to be doing that. And then a hard thing to do logistically, if you have a family, if you have a loved one, if you have little loved ones, is being apart from them and not being able to really communicate or be with them for a long time. That's probably what's going to limit your one thing that will keep your visit to 2 or 3 weeks. And then also them too. I mean, you don't want to be converting your brain to it. So you can talk to them, have a Zoom or a Skype call with your family in the evenings before you go to bed. That's okay, but you don't want to take them with you or somehow have, that's one of the painful things. If you have a family, is being apart from your family. Other things to be aware of when you go to do a stay like this. Let's talk about the homestay part of it. Again, this can be really good if the people there are people that you do hit it off with and you have good, interesting conversations with and things like that. That the whole cultural aspect, the idea behind it is good. But particularly if you're kind of in a developing country and they're not doing this because they're empty nesters and want to meet people and they're interested, but they're really doing it for the money. You might be staying in this place for a while and then you realize, I'm taking their room. They're all staying in that one room because I've got this room, and that's kind of uncomfortable. And they're not being paid all that much, and there are just big cultural gaffes that you can make as an American. I'll tell you one that I made several times, and when I went to different countries, is we're so habituated to taking long hot showers in the morning. We don't think of them as long hot showers, but they are by most of the world's standards, and that can use up all their heating, their water, their energy, and you're just sort of blithely doing that. So I don't know. It's to me, it depends. Again, if you're asking questions about the program, screening about the families, just considering all of this, but kind of at my stage now, is if you're following a program, like I said, where you're going to be wanting to be doing homework in the evening and you've been talking to your teacher one-on-one all morning and your tour guide one-on-one all afternoon, I would be kind of talked out at that point, and that sort of conversational aspect that you get from the family is, to me, outweighed now by my past cultural gaffes. So if I were to do this again, I think I might opt to stay in my own apartment or a hotel. That's just my personal experience behind this to consider. Other things that you want to be doing while you are on this stay to make the most of it is at a certain point, you want to, after you've told your teacher, please, let's read stuff aloud so we figure out my level. And then just really have at least one day a good conversation with that and say, I know I'm an adult, I've got an adult's mind, but in your language, I'm the equivalent of what? Am I a 5th grader? Am I a 6th grader? Do I have the basic vocabulary and structure of a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old? Okay, whatever it is, can we go together to a store that sells textbooks and school textbooks? And I'd like to get a whole series of truly graded readers. If you're telling me I read at the level of a 5th grader and you have a 12th grade school system, I want to get the next 7 grades. I want to have something that's slightly more challenging for me. I want to be reading a 6th grade reader now, and then when I'm done with that, a 7th grade reader, and a cultural and historical reader that native speakers would be using as they go through their education. This is not something that, even in our day of internet access and all this kind of thing, is particularly easy to get when you are back home. So this is something that you would want to pick up with your teacher. So now, I just mentioned going back home. You're going to go back home at the end of your 2 weeks or your 3 weeks or 4 weeks if you're lucky. But how should you follow up on this? Well, with our internet technology and stuff, I think one great way to follow up with this is, again, hopefully, because you screened the school and you had an option of teachers, and maybe you went in the first 2 or 3 days, you went through a couple, and then you found one teacher and you really hit it off with her. And you've now had a great 10 days or stuff like this, working one-on-one with her, helping you fix the language. On Saturdays, you met her family, you did stuff like this. So, keep up that relationship professionally as a teacher. Frankly speaking, a lot of these programs, the program management, everything like this, they eat most of the money you pay doesn't go to the teacher, it goes to running the whole program. So, sort of kind of offset that and give her more value for what she's done. You could say, outside of the context of this school, how about just one-on-one? Let's keep doing private lessons with me by Zoom or Skype or whatnot. You help me buy all these graded readers. Let's keep doing this. And so if you can offer to give her that extra stream of income, and you know this person now, and this person is a trained teacher, and now you're capable of talking and conversing, it would be better to keep this relationship up than to try to either just go home and stop talking, or to try to have their programs where you can, not programs, I don't know, sites where you can try to find a conversation partner, but you already got this one built in. So to follow up on this, you go home, you keep talking with this person, and you have got your graded readers now. You can go through those, but I assume you're hoping to go beyond that level. In many of my videos, I talk about the value of reading literature as such. I hope that people who watch my videos in general kind of share that sentiment that, well, learning how to read literature should be one of my goals. But even if it isn't a goal, as I've said before, it should be a tool. Reading is the only way that you can develop a wide enough vocabulary to have a really sophisticated knowledge of a language. So, after you've gone through the graded readers with her, if she's a literature teacher, she does that too. She can guide you into the literature, keep that up. If not, maybe you'll be, depending on what language is, how hard it is, maybe you can go on and read on your own. If you're doing French, German, Spanish, or Latin, you'd like to do it with me in my virtual academy, that's an option. Maybe another university, someplace has some other place where you can get the support that you need to start reading literature. But at a certain point, hopefully you'll become an independent reader. And after you've had this experience, you should be well on your way to having a full, complete, actual, functional, working knowledge of a language. So this is how you can get the most out of an immersion experience abroad. Again, the crucial thing is to have good planning, to choose a program where you can have a teacher of the type I described, follow a program like I described, make sure more than anything else that you avoid the English language like the plague.